Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. Welcome into yet another episode here of Three Up, Three Down. Really excited to have everyone on board here tonight. We are still in the middle of our first season back here in the fall of 2021. That season then really reflects upon the season that we've all had here in 2021. Last week, we took a really good dive into what each of us kind of improved upon, what we may have struggled with, and then looked ahead to 2022 and what exactly we wanted to work on during some of our fall seasons, and then also to think about working on as we get to 2022. And then now we get to kind of turn over the page here, so to speak, to the umpires that really put on a really nice show here for us at the Little League Baseball World Series. And we'll start to connect with those individuals here this week, members of the COVID crew from Williamsport here on board with us this week and the next few weeks ahead of us. And then we'll actually add the softball umpires that'll come back in towards about the first or second week of October as well. I think that's the second weekend in October is when we'll go ahead and hit those individuals coming up. So really looking forward here to reconnecting with everyone here yet again. And again, all in that larger picture here of reflecting back on 2021. And today that'll give us an opportunity to check in with a few members of the COVID crew here from 2021 in Williamsport in the Little League Baseball World Series. That's really all I've got announcement-wise here. DJ, did I miss anything here before we get started with announcements or anything like that?
Nope, all good. Feel free to utilize the chat, ask questions as they come up. We'll be monitoring that throughout.
Cool. All right, just to kind of give us a few little ground rules, if you will, here on talking with those umpires from the 2021 World Series. We're not going to necessarily dive into any type of specific plays or situations or things like that. Our scope and our purpose for talking to those individuals, and I'll introduce them here in just a second, is realistically just to kind of get their thoughts on their experience, kind of talk about some of the keys to their success. We'll talk to both Tom and Jason, who are both crew chiefs, obviously, as well. Some of their experience and perspective there from them, too. So we get to touch base with them. Some keys to success, as I mentioned, and just really a reflective piece back to 2021. And some really excellent umpiring, some excellent fundamentals, as we saw in the videos. From the promo video, and I'll kind of show a little bit of some other videos here tonight as well. So excited to go ahead and dive on into the crew that we have here with us joining us tonight. I'll kind of go ahead through and introduce some of the individuals that we have on board with us. Many of you guys probably saw Tom Rawlings is in the house, and we'll give him a shout out or two here in just a second as well to talk through how this was different this year and what made this year special. I see Brian Horns on as well. Brian from the southeastern region. Colin Campbell also with us from the Southwest. We've also got then Darren Beescheck out of Connecticut, one of the best chefs in America. Brian Rounds from Idaho in the West. And I saw Jason Kelly on. He must have popped back off. My guess is he probably has some connection issues or, oh no, there he is. Jason Kelly from the Central. Many of you guys know that face. Here as well. So excited to have those individuals on. So, Tom, I'm going to just basically the format that we've got. I got a couple question and answers to go. And you guys that obviously umpired during the World Series, feel free to take any of these questions as you want to. Tom, I'll kind of start with you here in just a second to kind of talk about the move to using the crew chief model. And then, Jason, I'll come back to you as well. DJ mentioned this. If you guys have questions that pop up that you want to go ahead and ask, feel free to use the chat. We'll eventually feed them onto the World Series umpires. And then World Series umpires, if you guys just want to take what you get on those questions and just go on with whoever wants to take them, feel free to speak up and unmute yourself. But again, everyone else can just kind of use the chat, and we'll definitely make this kind of an informal discussion. And again, back to reflect on 2021. So, Tom, I'll go ahead and start with you here, and just not necessarily to put you on the spot or anything like that. But I know that this year we moved to the decision to use crew chiefs. And there were 3 crew chiefs that we used. Jason Kelly, one of them from the Central. We had Brian Henry from the Southeast, and then Sean Gilday from the East as well. 3 really good picks among 12 really good picks that you could have had, and you couldn't have gone wrong, obviously, in those. And just kind of talk us back through the, I guess, the decision or the thought process, some of the pros, the cons, I guess, of using the crew chief model here in Williamsport, and just what you thought of it overall as a product here in 2021.
Sure, no problem. Before I start in on all of that, though, you went through some of the Baseball World Series umpires who were online. I'll just call everyone's attention to Mike Cameo is on with us this evening. Also, Mike was one of our Softball World Series umpires down in Greenville for opening up that venue. Anyhow, back to the initial question. Yeah, we did go to a crew chief model based on some of the parameters that were placed on the tournament due to the pandemic, which forced Little League to operate the tournament with a much smaller staff complement than usual. Normally for the World Series, I have some long-term volunteers assisting me with working with the umpires. Because of the reduced staffing, I was not allowed to bring any of them to Williamsport to assist. As you know, as the stadiums are not right beside each other, and even if they were, I couldn't be two places at one time. So we had to find a way to sort of share the load. And I went to Nick Caringi and Pat Wilson and Steve Keener and said, I want to use a crew chief model this year to help me out more than anything else. I'll admit I was very selfish in my original thought process. I was looking to help myself with it. As it turned out, I think we helped the entire program with it. And I'll let Jason and Brian and Darren and whoever, Brian Horn also, chime in and comment on, what they thought about it being run through it that way, because as you all know, this was not their first World Series. This was their second. And in their first one, we had operated under the traditional model where the crews were mixed and matched on a game-to-game basis. We didn't do that this year. The crews stayed almost entirely intact throughout the entire tournament. As we got down to the final few games, I did shift some crew members around, but the bulk of the crews remained the same. So it was really birthed out of my need to have help. But I think one of the outcomes of it will be moving forward, perhaps not in 2022, but beyond. I think you're going to see that model adopted at least at Williamsport as the standard model. So I'll stop there and let anyone else speak who wants to speak.
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in there and start to transition over to Jason and then the rest of the crews as well. And you guys can speak into just about how, the crew chief model went for you guys. And the reason why I wanted to start there was to give, I know a lot of people will run their own district tournaments, state tournaments, and then, obviously our regional tournaments as well. And many have probably kicked around the ideas of crew chiefs too. So to kind of beg, borrow, and steal from, the why, I guess, behind it, why we might want to use it, and then also kind of reflect upon how it went. So Jason, I'm going to jump to you here. I think one of the larger questions here about this then is, as a crew chief, just what were some of the general responsibilities that Tom, Nick, and Steve and Pat Wilson would have passed on to you? So if you want to start there, Jason, just talk about the general responsibilities like pre-tournament, during the tournament, that kind of stuff. Just kind of share what your job was as a crew chief and how it might have been different than just someone else, I guess.
Sure. The pre-tournament was very simple. We were the eyes and ears. If Tom needed something or Nick or somebody else, we just related to the crew. Any one of us could have been crew chiefs. I'm not gonna lie. We were a really good group of guys. Wasn't our first time around, and any one of us could have done this job. And it was just nice that they allowed me to be that for this crew, because I was a young guy, but it was a good crew to be a part, because every game, the crew, there wasn't one specific guy that stood out from anybody else. So during the tournament, it was basically no different. We did every game. The home plate umpire ran pre-tournament, pre-games. If we missed something, I would say something, or somebody else would say something. Everybody else was just part of the crew. Crew chief only meant one thing. It was outside the games. During the games, the home plate umpire took control of everything.
Yeah.
So pretty basic.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll just jump to other members of the crew, the Bryans that are out there, obviously, Darren and Colin and anyone else here too that was on with the crew chief. How do you guys feel the crew chief model went? And then I guess how did it make a difference, I guess, in probably some achievement or some growth, I guess, during the tournament as well?
I'll sound off first. I I thought the crew chief stuff was phenomenal, and Jason was a great leader for us, for our crew. And it started, a few months back too. We obviously ran 4-man, and for some of us, we need to learn that format and those rotations. And Jason led us with the meetings with Tom along with that, But I think the model that we set up, understanding that where we were going to go and play, that we needed to rotate. And Jason was a great advocate and a great leader when we had a couple meetings on the 4-man. And so with that process, moving it forward, we had a point man, and I felt, Darren and Colin can speak for themselves, but I felt that anything I needed, I had a point man to go to. Tom's a busy guy running everything he's got to run. And so I had a point man. If I had questions, Jason was my guy. So I thought from that point, that was a great process. So
I'm gonna echo everything Brian said. Jason was a great guy to run this crew. Even after our post games, I mean, Jason and I had numerous conversations just on little tweaks and things for us all to do. And it was just a great experience, and Jason did a great job.
Hi guys. I'll echo everything that Colin and Brian said. I know Jason had mentioned he was the younger guy in the group, but younger or not, I still think he was the best choice for the role he was given. He did a fantastic job. I think I've told him and other people, I've worked with plenty of umpires in my life, and he's probably the best guy I've ever worked with. And he taught me a lot while I was there, and it carried on to we each got better every game we were at. The pre-games. I think my favorite part of the games were actually the post-game conversations, because no matter how small or how big anything was, we had an honest and open discussion after each game. And you don't always get that back at home when you're working with your local guys, because some of the guys you work with don't want to hear small things you're doing wrong, but some of the small things that you may be doing wrong, little adjustments, you make that adjustments, you do it right the next game, and you don't do it again. You break habits like that. And that was one of the best things I'd experienced. And I mean, we all chipped in on that. We got tips from Brian and from Jason and from Colin, but Jason just was a great leader overall, and did a great job, I thought.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
The one thing I wanted to say about being a crew chief was the number one thing I wanted to do as crew chief is to make it very comfortable and easy for everybody. Because being at the World Series, at any World Series, it can get really pressure, it can get really crazy really quick. And we've always come across the one umpire who likes to try and take control of everything. And that's not what any of us wanted to do. So number one, I wanted to start with preparation, and getting together with the Zoom calls was the most important thing, because this was the first year that we actually changed the 4-man crews.
Yeah.
We changed it to something that was supposed to be uniform for everybody. And with the Zoom meetings before the tournament, before we got there, I think was the biggest, additive, positive that we could have done as a crew before getting to Williamsport. Because number one, it gave us guidelines and pointed some emphasis before we got there, so there was no confusion on what we were going to do. And I think it showed in all of our work how well that we took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
So
Brian Horn,
Right.
you were on a different crew with Brian Henry. Anything else to kind of add in, or how that may have been? Because Jason, Colin, Darren, and Brian, they were all together for a lot, and just kind of share, I guess, a little bit about how your crew may have been different or similar, or anything else there with the crew chief structure, I guess.
Yeah, well, first off, I think Jason had a really tough job because he had Darren on his crew. But at any rate, no, I think that model worked really, really well. By keeping us together throughout the tournament, we got comfortable with each other, and as that comfort level grew, we got better as the tournament went along, and having these rotations that or the new rotation and working them the way we did. it showed that what consistency across the board can do. Unfortunately, we had to replace an umpire in one of the games, and then when we did that, nobody missed a beat. Under the leadership of these guys, it went very smoothly. Everybody checked their egos at the door. We got along just tremendously well. I don't think I've ever been around a group that has gotten along as well as us 12 did. It was wonderful the whole week, and under the leadership of those guys, it just made it that much even better.
Yeah, good points.
Can I just ask one question of Brian Horn? Can you briefly explain what you meant when you said, I just don't know what you mean by that. Actually, I do, but we won't talk about that, but we'll move on. Go ahead. So,
yeah, we don't have enough time for that.
not enough time for that, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's really cool that we use the crew chief model. It's something that definitely we kicked around. I remember at the Umpire Summit in 2019, Tom, with that idea of bringing some individuals back, and we started to actually experiment that a little bit. So in the Central region as well, and we got an opportunity to do that this year at our regional tournament to a degree, not to the extent obviously that you guys were able to experiment with in Williamsport. And I definitely think as everyone has kind of probably saw on the product on TV, and obviously as those that were engaged in it shared, definitely a really good model to inspire confidence, comfortability, and when you got confidence and you're comfortable, good things happen. And I think one of the things that many of you guys mentioned here was the whole idea of getting better and the importance of post-game and pre-game conferences in that whole conversation. So I don't want us to talk about the importance of pre-game and post-game conferences in general, because I think we do get that. But at the same time, I think it is important for us to put into perspective why and how they are so important at that level, especially when you're already working with 4 umpires that you've done a lot of pre-work for on Zoom calls in the months leading up to the World Series. So, in the conversation, in the thought process of how the crew chief model helped everyone get better, I want to revisit that conversation and open it up to all those World Series umpires on here. You all mentioned, getting better. And I guess my general question here then is how and why were the pre and post game conferences so integral in that whole discussion, even after being together for so long and working many games together during the tournament?
Yeah, I'll chime first, and then Jason can jump in. Sure. For me, and no matter what, it's mental, and it's a process that pregame that we need to go through to mentally get prepared for where we're going. And it doesn't matter, if it was the 9th game in for this crew, every time that plate umpire was the crew chief, we started from the basics. What's your coverages? Where are you going? Who's going out on this ball where it's hit that point? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? We talked about our pregame coverages and our responsibilities at every position, with no runners on, with runners on, with outs, et cetera, our signals, et cetera. We talked about it like it was game 1, and it helped us mentally prepare for what we were going to go walk on the field to do. And for me, it's a process in my mindset to empty out everything that's been in there for the last 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours and get to focusing on where we're going to go. Whether it's a district game, a state game, a regional game, we're at the World Series. So we really need to be mentally prepared. And that pregame helps 100%.
It kept us on point.
Mm-hmm.
And that pregame, for me, it spills over, to pre-pitch. Pre-pitch, before every pitch, I'm running down that checklist. And a majority of it was what we went over in our pregame, and it helps emphasize that checklist, that pre-pitch checklist in my mind.
I think that's all good stuff too, because there's a large cliche, and we've all umpired with fellow umpires that probably discredit or at least downplay the importance of that pregame conference. And I just wanted to circle back to that because I think you guys made the point about mindfulness and being in the right frame of mind. Brian, I think you said how it helps you to kind of empty out the few hours before and then mindfully engage yourself so that you can go onto the field. And Phil King last week made a point about fanatical concentration as being a point of emphasis that we definitely tried to play out with a lot of the things that we put on 3 Up, 3 Down. And then, at the Central region, that was one of our points of emphasis during the tournament too, fanatical concentration as well. And I think a lot of people who have experienced being able to umpire at the level of a regional or World Series can understand the intensity necessary to be able to be on your toes and do that job for the 2 hours there. And I think that a lot of times in our local leagues and districts, whether they be a regular season game, a district game, a state game, whatever it might be, we oftentimes kind of downplay, I guess, the translation of pregame onto the field. And I think that's when we see the difference between being out there to umpire and then actually umpiring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take us into your post games, I guess, and you guys can get as specific as you want, as general as you want here too. Again, I think we get the understanding of that pregame conference kind of sets the tone, puts us mindfully in the right place to have that fanatical concentration. But obviously in the post game, you get an opportunity to kind of dissect some things that you would have obviously seen in the game and some habits there too. And one of the questions that I sent out to these men was, hey, what are some things that you may have struggled with, or specifically, what are some things that you got better with or better at during the tournament too? So many of you guys talked about, like I said, getting better, and I think there were some specific things, if you want to share those, what you may have gotten better at during the tournament, and then just talk about how the post-game conferences or even the pre-game conferences really helped you get better at that 1 or 2 things here. So take us inside those post-games, if you would, please.
So I'll start with the post game. The post game was real simple on our crew. Is when we got back, we relaxed a little bit, and then we always started with the crew chief of the home plate umpire. And I always want to make sure we got everything off our chest before we walked out of that locker room, because that was our time to talk about things. So we always started with the home plate umpire, and we went around the field, first, second, third, and then back home. And the best thing about the post game is we weren't afraid to tell people with mistakes or how we could have gotten better. Now, it's easy to make a mistake on national television, but it's also easy to have somebody break you down. And that's something you don't want to do. That's why as a crew, we were a family, and we were easy to talk about stuff and not hurt anybody's feelings, because we were all there for the same reason. So it was easy for us, at least my aspect of it was.
Yeah, so you talked about what we learned. Jason and I on day 1 had 2 plates, and Jason's was on volunteer. My first plate was a night game on Lomedy, and I was the first one to wear the mask, I think, that the video camera mask. And typically my face mask was a little loose, and I kept it that way, and didn't realize till about the bottom of the first inning where it was a different weight. It was in 2019 we had it was heavier. This year it was a little lighter. We all said we're going to do it, but literally the mask was pushing my hat down into my eyebrows. And what I learned obviously was that I needed to tighten up my damn mask, and did that in preparation for the second plate. So while the video mask cam provided some cool footage, in my first plate, it frustrated me. And I was so much worrying about that, whether my strike zone was what it should have been or whatnot. But Jason and I talked about it after the game, because we did our post game. We went around and we talked about it. And on the way back to the hotel, Jason and I were chatting, and it was something that we were all going to have to do. So this is day 1. Let's figure out and pass on information to other guys on, hey, you're going to get in Lomedy. You're going to wear this, they're going to put this camera on top of your head. It is a little bit awkward. There's a little bit of a weight to it. Position the battery toward the back. So what we post game and processed and got better at, we passed on down the line, I'm sure, to Brian, Henry's crew, and that word forward. So like Jason said, post games were, hey, we focused on good stuff. We're all in process as umpires. There's no doubt we're all in process. And so we help tweak little things. So we looked we progressed as a crew down the road. So it was fun. We had great post-game conversations. Now I know Colin and Darren love the mass cam too, so they gotta have something to say.
Come
about
on, Darren. What do you got to say, Darren? Let's hear it.
This is being recorded, so I have to be careful on what I say. I don't want to go too crazy, but
You just have to be careful how you say it.
I understand that, but we'll save that for a different conversation. But I actually only wore the mask cam once at Lamadi as well, and luckily I had my fitted hat, which I wore, so I tightened up my mask, so it really didn't give me an issue. Plus, I think from I always straddle the foul line. For some reason, I veered over to the right, and we mentioned that in the post game. And then next time that situation came up, obviously I was on the line. Another thing I learned a lot about in the post games was, I don't want to say rotations, but I've worked 4-man crews before on a small field, but mainly work 2. And during the season, when you're working a 2-man crew, when I was taught, you were always taught when the ball is out, you're in, and when the ball is in, you're out. So to make that adjustment from being U2, my first game on second base, I was pretty much coming in, and every ball that went to the outfield, whether it was, every base hit, I was circling in, until we spoke about that in post game and learned that, just come in to get that wedge play at second base with the runner coming in. If it's going to be kind of a play, you don't have to come in on every single play, and the angles of the play you want to be at, what side to come in at. So things like that we spoke about helped me a lot. And that was, Jason helped me a lot with that too. So that was just 2 things specifically that I learned when I was there and got better at every game, I feel. So thank you for that, Jason.
Real quick, when did that come in handy for you instead of coming in and staying out, specifically at first base?
When that Ohio player fell in the batter's box?
No, when you're at first
there?
base, when you're at first base and the ball get out to right field, what happened at first base? Do you remember?
That's the batter when he fell in the batter's box and I made the call at first base, right? Is that what you're talking about?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember he had fallen in the batter's box, and I started to go out because I thought he was going to get the ball, but it went to right field. So I came back in and made the call from point of first base when he came in. It was a put out from right field, actually. So that worked out well in that situation.
And you were spot on for angle, timing, everything was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So just real quick on my end, the conversations again, in post game really helped, later on in the tournament. It just, sharpened, made us even sharper than what we thought we already were, just minor tweaks. And it just really helped later on in the tournament, after every game, your next game, we were just that much better, in my opinion. So that's how my takeaway from post games, just makes us all better.
Yeah.
I think that we ought to never strive to stop learning. So these post games always help you learn. I picked up something, just some little something, well, practically every one. And even if I wasn't on the game, it happened to be in the locker room and hear the other crews post game, there's something there, a little nugget that might be useful down the line somewhere. So, if you ever think that you can stop learning, you might want to think again, because we can never stop learning. And those post games are essential for that.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that we kind of ran into last week and just in conversations in general, we talked about downplaying the pregame conference. A lot of times in our post games, I think too, we're oftentimes very quick to get out of where we're at in regular season, district, states, or whatever it is too. And the other thing that also came up that was that I think that we are in a place by and large where we either get like feedback that we can't do anything with, meaning that like, oh, hey, you looked great, keep doing what you're doing. Or you get just completely hounded with a laundry list of a bunch of things that makes you feel like you didn't do anything right and that you've got a bunch of stuff to improve. So just in talking to some people in general, it's interesting to hear your guys' perspective on the post game and how structured you were at attacking it and how valuable it was to getting better. And I think, as we as leaders and people in our communities and in our district programs and region programs, I think we've got kind of a task in front of us, and that is to continue to educate folks just not only on how important post-game and pre-game conferences are, but ultimately how to construct good post-game feedback too. And that's hard too, because sometimes when you're working a game, like, you may have had a couple close ones that you didn't feel great about, or sometimes you're just so dialed into what you're doing that you don't pick up on what you're doing as a crew either. So I think there is a process here for us to kind of dive a little deeper into in the future in terms of growth and development, Brian, as you mentioned, about how exactly can we give, I don't want to say better feedback, because I think we all give decent feedback, but how do we do it in a way that's most conducive to helping you improve and helping others improve too? So I think that's a really good point and really great shares here from you guys. Kind of last round for me, because we're starting to get a little bit closer to that half-hour time, which is fine, and we can continue to talk as long as anybody wants to. But in terms of questions for me back for the crew from 2021, because we really want to continue to hear about that experience, and it's been great to hear about the importance of pre and post game and your perspective on the crew chief model here too. But just want to kind of give you guys the open floor about, maybe to talk about what was different between World Series 1 for you and World Series 2. So you can take that question if you wanted to, the difference between World Series 1 and World Series 2. Maybe just one of the things that you either found most challenging or most fun about working the Little League World Series, just to give some of us who are looking to do that maybe at some point in our career or whatever it might be, a little bit of a preparation of, hey, be aware of this in case we get there. Or in case you get there. So just, maybe one thing that you struggled with or were challenged with that you had to work through, and then also kind of talk about, if you wanted to, just what you kind of enjoyed most about working a World Series between World Series 1 and World Series 2.
For me, the differences were, I felt a lot more relaxed in World Series 2. I've been there. I've seen the kids. The quality of play. I've seen that fastball that gets to that plate in a hurry. I think my first pitch on my first plate game was, I forgot how fast these kids throw at this tournament. This is not your local league tournament. But yeah, overall I felt more relaxed. I think that helped as well.
Jason should go next.
All right. So this was unlike any tournament I've ever been a part of. I've been to Taylor, I've been to Williamsport, I've been overseas, I've done high school tournaments, and this was the best tournament I've ever been involved with. And this is the reason why. I love my family, but when the family wasn't there, this is all we did.
Yeah.
It was all about umpiring. It was all about us. It was all about the guys. It was the camaraderie. And that was the one thing I was searching for during my whole adventures, this is what it was. The games will always be the games. It's always about the kids. But after the games are over, what do we have left? We have each other.
Yeah.
And that was the most important thing coming into this. I think that, I hate to say this, that the pandemic gave us was this opportunity. And this was something that none of us will ever forget. So that's what the difference was for me.
Yeah, Jason, you stole my thunder there, but I can't say this too loudly so it doesn't get float down the hall. But I think that's part of it too, is that we we didn't have anybody but ourselves there. And when we, after the games, we hung out together, and it was just a wonderful thing that made it so much different for me anyway, was to be able to be with these guys. And I think it what was it, Thursday or Friday, when we finally figured that out, that that's what it was, that, hey, we don't have anybody here. We have, all we have is us. And it was a great thing. So, but I agree with Jason. That was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I'll echo what those guys said. Obviously, you want your family to be with you, but I think our families not being with us might have actually been a little bit of an advantage. Strange enough to say, because like you said, I know we bonded as a crew, and I'm sure Brian, you guys did, and the other guys bonded as well as a crew together, and we bonded as a group of 12 in general. So
Yeah.
I think that was a big difference in that. And that way we worked together this year. So on a personal note, I was like Colin, I felt more relaxed, and I also enjoyed working the 4-man rotations over the 6-man crews that we worked in the past as well. I'm hoping that's going to stay going forward, or in some form of it, but I really enjoyed that part of it as well. And like Jay said, the camaraderie was just unbelievable. Some of the things we probably can't repeat what happened at a forum like this, but you guys were there, and you're all smiling and laughing, and we had a great time, and we had a lot of fun. And you guys know how I am when I'm around you guys, and I'm having my fun, but I'm getting a little emotional talking about it right now, because it really was special. I need to thank all you guys for that, and especially thank Tom and everybody at Little League for that experience too. So that was great.
I think one big thing that we wanted to make this a big success for Tom, and because we knew that it was a step out for him, and he'd been talking about this for a few years, and he helped assemble these 12 guys. And I think all 12 of us, we felt a little bit of ownership to not fail. And we wanted this 4-man rotation, this crew chief model, to succeed. And I think everyone took that to heart. It was, for all of us, it was probably a completely different experience from our first time for our first World Series. For me, it was. What Jason said was true, because it was the 12 of us for 14 days in a row, 13 days for sure. And we studied hard, we worked hard on and off the field to make this a big success for Tom. In our games with our crew, we went 3 or 4 games without challenges, which was kind of crazy. But flat out for us, we wanted it to be a big success for Tom in a performance level. And so we all 12 of us carried a little bit of a ownership weight to make that work. And I believe all 12 of us did a very good job of making that work for Tom. We were loose. We were an unbelievable crew of 12. And what I think Brian said it earlier, we all checked our egos at the door, and we had a great time. We pre-gamed hard. We worked hard on the field. We had some crazy weather. We had some humidity that I had never experienced personally. And we worked through it and got it done. The experience for all of us, I believe, are probably relationships and memories that probably out exceed what our first series was, in a lot of ways. And I couldn't be more proud of the crew on here, and Brian Henry's crew and Sean Guidry's crew. Number one, it was cool to see Tom come in the locker room and say, you're making this work. You guys are doing a great job. That made all of us feel like, yes, okay, great. If Tom's getting the accolades, because it rolls both ways. If we make our boss look good, that's our job. So it was a blast, absolute blast.
We were loose, but we were very focused throughout the whole tournament.
Agreed.
There's a difference between being loose and being wild, and being loosed and being focused. And we knew from the very beginning that this was going to be different, because if we failed, this was all for nothing. And this would not be another opportunity for somebody else to come back and get another chance at this. Because this once in a lifetime thing it's a great achievement. But then for some guys, it's like, what else do I have left to do? And this opportunity, if we knocked it out of the park, which all of us think we did, is then it could be for somebody else to come back and enjoy it again and help the next person who's like a freshman who's never been there before, that can loosen them up, but still keep them focused. Because this is all about the kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great stuff. And I think you guys give us a lot of things from a couple different perspectives. Number one is people who, aspire to get to the World Series or any regional tournament, or even like a state tournament. It gives us some things to think about and just some perspective from which to draw. But even from at least my perspective as somebody in the region who helps to organize and coordinate umpires, and many of us have that same role in other capacities as well, whether it be at the local, the district, the state levels, or anything else, you give us a really good insight as to how to structure an environment or a program that succeeds. And I think, in our conversation about retaining umpires over the course of season, creating opportunities for those individuals and making them, as structured and as geared towards success, I think is what I'm looking for. As you guys were able to create through the crew chief model and through your interactions with each other, I think it's really valuable insight to highlight for anyone, myself or anyone else out there, who's looking to create an environment that is aimed at helping other people succeed. And to hear your guys' stories and stuff like that is just a testament to how hard leaders have to work to create that environment, whether you're a local league UIC, district UIC, or a UIC of a tournament. And Brian, I know you've got the Senior World Series as well, that you oftentimes work to create a very similar environment to as well. So I think that those insights are really great. Kind of last couple of things here to round out, and then I'll kind of come back to announcements and really wrap us up here for the week. Tom, eventually I'm going to come back to you and ask you to kind of wrap up and share any thoughts or any takeaways that you may have had here. So if you want to think about that before I turn it over to you. But just the rest of the umpires from the 2021 COVID crew on here, just give you guys a last opportunity to share anything else that you want to go ahead and throw out there to all of us, to the umpire community in Little League International. Just any words of wisdom, advice, any things to think of, or anything like that you want to share. And then I'll come to Tom here to go ahead and wrap us out before we go ahead and say goodbye to each other.
I'll say something really quick. Just a little bit of advice. If you're ever in the locker room at under Volunteer Stadium there, don't ever put your shoes on anybody's chair because it'll get you in trouble. That's my only bit of advice that I have for all you guys there. Well, we won't go any further with that. But just, on a serious note, just keep doing what you're doing and work hard to get there. That's my advice to you, plain and simple. So you keep on working, don't ever give up. And if you want to get there someday, hopefully you'll get there. So just keep working hard. So that's all I got.
And when you do get there, just do what you do that got you there. That's, you're there for a reason, and just continue to do that and enjoy it, because it goes by quick, very quick. But
and have fun. Don't forget to have fun when you're there. That's the most important part. Take a look around, take in the scenery, take it all in, because sometimes people lose sight of that. Remember to have fun.
Yeah. I think for me, being mentally prepared, every single pitch. We talk about tracking the ball, and as a plate umpire, every single pitch, mentally be prepared in the field, be prepared. Colin talked about a checklist, and when we're out there, we were running down a checklist. Got to run around first, balls hit here, where do I go, et cetera, et cetera. Our goal was to complete every rotation on our crew, no matter what, complete the rotation all the way through, no matter what. And that was big for us. But part of it too is the mechanics that Little League International set forward for us. We need those. That's our model. That's what we strive for. Whether you're on the dish or on the as a base umpire, crisp mechanics one post game, I'll add this one post game. I picked up something from Jason and something that I faltered on. And with Jason, I talked about it, and it made just what, as me being a play umpire, it made me just a little more crisp. And that, so yeah, we talk about mental preparation. I can't seem to emphasize that enough. For when you get to that point, it's even more every single pitch, mental process, go. We talk about pause, read, and react all the time. Yeah, that's it too. But yeah, be in the moment for sure.
Somebody asked me when I got home, said, "How was it?" I said, it was great. I said, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. We busted each other's chops all for nearly 2 weeks. I said, "Oh yeah, we umpired some baseball too." So, and like Darren said, no matter what level it is, whether it's your local district or whether it's at Williamsport, the most important thing is to have fun.
So my last part advice is, whether you're in the West region, Central region, the East region, the Southeast, or Southwest, you need to trust your process. What I mean by that is, if you have a goal of a World Series, you need to understand, you need to find what's the process in your region. Whether it's going to clinics, getting name recognition, you have to do something to stand out, because everybody's a name. Sorry, daughter. Everybody's a name until you stand out to somebody.
Kisses.
Mm-hmm. Kisses.
Huggy.
Yeah, huggies. Yeah. Bye-bye. Love you. So what I'm saying is, go to clinics, get name recognition, do something different. Go to your regionals when you have an opportunity, stand out. You have to find your process, know your process. Okay? And then just have fun along the way.
That's good old awesome stuff all around. Relationships, having fun. I think that's what makes umpiring in general very, very rewarding. And then our model here in Little Leagues, I think, so unique as well. Tom, I'll come back to you. Any takeaways, any final thoughts, or anything like that before we go ahead and wrap up this evening that you'd like to share as you listen into the conversation today?
Sure. First of all, I can't thank the 12 guys who were up there with me this past August enough. I know I keep trying to, and I keep falling short. I have been espousing for several years several things at the umpire for our umpiring models. One of which is the crew chief concept. One of which is locked crews, 4-man mechanics on the small field as opposed to 6-man mechanics, meaningful pre and post games. And these 12 were able to show my bosses that some of the stuff I have been espousing for several years actually might have some merit. I'll probably never again have the chance to have an entire crew of returnees like I did for 2021. But my hope is that after their performance in 2021, probably not in 2022 because of we've been delaying those poor folks for several years. But I'm hoping by 2023, we will be bringing alumni/veteran umpires back to function as crew chiefs. And when I use the term crew chief with those alumni type umpires, they'll be part of that crew. It'll be 4 men on the field, but a 5-person crew. So we'll always have a built-in alternate should, God forbid, we have a situation where an umpire gets sick or injured. We'll have someone who is already deeply enmeshed in that group ready to step out on the field. As Jason said, if your goal is to get to a World Series or a regional, it's on you, in all honesty. I mean, the tools are out there, the training opportunities are out there. for those of you who didn't know any of these guys who were speaking tonight, now you've seen them. And trust me, reach out to them. They'll respond. They'll answer your questions. They'll give you good guidance. Real quick on pre and post game conferences, as you can guess, over the years, I've seen more of those than I can count. This year, I saw ones that actually meant something, both pre-game and post-game. More so the post-game, when they would sit like you would sit with your family members and discuss things. And because of those frank and open discussions, all three of those crews got better and better and better. My philosophy regarding umpiring is the only thing you're competing with is yourself. And your goal is to be better tomorrow than you were today. And these 12 gave me 11 days of getting better every day. And because of them, I think you're going to see some changes across the whole program. So I'll shut up before I go too far into the weeds. All yours, Stu.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. And I think, you ended and transitioned me into a great place. And that was to kind of brag on a little bit of these umpires here too. So, I did this a little bit last week. Obviously, there is no 3 up, 3 down without the usage of video. And I've tried to incorporate all the crews, obviously, and all the umpires there too, but kind of tried to make them specific to the umpires that we have on. Brian Horn, I'm sorry, I don't think one of you on here in this clip. I know I've got a couple of them in there in the future here too. But nonetheless, here, one of the things that we oftentimes talk about in successful umpiring is that fundamental of proper use of eyes. And last week we talked a little bit about taking advantage of routine plays and saw a lot of those awesome things happen. And another focal point this year we talked about on 3 up, 3 down was the proper use of eyes and how timing comes from that proper use of eyes. So just a couple things to brag on here with these guys here. First one's Jason Kelly at first base. Here we have a ground ball to the third baseman over to first. Talk about confirming firm and secure possession of this tag play essentially here to make sure that the fielder has it firm and securely before we even start to signal our call. And that's exactly where we get our timing at from here. So if I go ahead and let it play out a little bit here, Jason has this play, very easy routine play. You see where his eyes end up going. Here they're on the play, but immediately then he picks his eyes up and take a look at where they're at now. They have confirmed firm and secure possession before he's even gone into his call. And that fundamental alone allows us then to do some other things really, really well. And that's what we mean by proper use of eyes. That is where we get our timing. Proper timing is proper use of eyes. That way, when stuff gets tricky, like it does here on Brian Henry, we're used to looking for firm and secure possession. And here he is using his eyes right here. You take a look at where this ball is. Brian's trying to find the ball just as Jason did in the previous clip. So before we even come up to make a signal, we are confirming firm and secure possession. In Jason's clip, the first baseman had firm and secure possession, then he could make a signal. Here in Brian's clip, the ball's on the ground. Brian sees that. Once he sees it, now he can go ahead and make that informed decision. Great timing on this play, all then because of proper use of eyes. Our timing comes from proper use of eyes. Great mechanic there by Brian Henry. Things also get a little tricky at other bases here too. Here's one at second base on the turn of a double play. Pat Griffin out of the Central Region is our umpire here. You can see this one in slow motion very clearly. This fielder is going to receive this ball off the base. And using our eyes as the timing mechanism, that is the fundamental to timing, allows us then to go ahead and make sure that not only we get something right as we did and saw Brian Henry get right, but here we get this fielder off the base. Pat is not too quick to go ahead and make that call, processes everything because he's trained his eyes on those routine plays, and he's able to get this one right real nice and easy. Last one here for us, Colin. This one's yours. Jason is the first base umpire here. Again, it almost looks like the same clip. It's a great fundamental he has in terms of checking. You see his eyes there, went to firm and secure before he made a call. Now we get a play back at third base. Colin, this one's you here to showcase you on this side of the diamond here. We get a tag play here now. And as we see Colin take this one, he works his wedge as we've talked about. You can see he's got this tag, but everybody take a look at what he does with his eyes. If you take a look, he starts to lean. You see that lean? He's looking for firm and secure possession before he goes into his out call. And our timing then comes from that habit which is proper use of eyes. And whether it be a force play as we've seen or a tag play here, our timing then is a result. It's a product. It only comes from proper use of eyes. And again, in this slow-mo, you can see right there's the look here. We see Colin taking a look and a peek for that ball, and some really good fundamentals here highlighted by them, among many other individuals here too. And at the end of every session here, I kind of try and put into perspective just how effective a lot of these umpires did. And again, a large product of the successes in your pregame conferences, your postgame conferences, and all the and all the preparation that you would have done leading into the tournament. So to everyone who was able to join us tonight, thank you for being here. I think there was a lot of golden nuggets here from the crew. Whether it be the video that we just showed in the highlights, or obviously more importantly, what each of the 5 men who joined us today to share from the 2021 COVID crew. Brian, Jason, Colin, and Darren, thank you so much for taking time to join us here and share things with us. We'll hang around and kick it for a few minutes if you guys want to here at the end of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here in just a second. We'll be back on, same time, same place next week, 8 p.m., with a few more members from the COVID crew from 2021. This week we focused a lot on the crew chief model, dissecting that and the importance of pre- and post-game conferences. We'll continue to evolve that conversation as we go ahead and bring in other members of the crew as well, and kind of get to really flush out really what made individuals successful at the 2021 series here, and what we can take away as we structure that environment, whether we be as leaders or in umpires in future tournaments as well. So thank you to everyone for joining us again. Same time, same place. That's 8 p.m. next Sunday for more members of the umpire crew. Look forward to having everybody on then. Again, thank you to everyone for being here, and you umpires here from the 2021 crew. Brian, Jason, Colin, and Darren, thanks for being here. We'll see everybody then next week.